OilersLive Podcast. OilersLive Podcast.
Now, get ready to talk hockey. Streaming from the Oilers Live Studio. Subscribe or follow today.
Hey everybody, it's Michael here with the Oilers Live Podcast. Haven't done a live episode in a very long time, but we've had some recent Oilers news. Bakersfield is also in overtime. Lots of things happening in the Oilers world right now. So why not tonight? I've got as my guest tonight, Mr. Mike Dursa. Welcome. How you doing, Mike? Oh, I've got you
I'm doing
down
pretty well,
listed
Mike.
as I've got you down listed as Sean, the Oil Knight, but we'll change that. I'll get you a little credit there so that we're good to go. So have you watched any of the game
I haven't seen any of the Bakersfield game, but I did watch round one of San Jose, St. Louis. Not exactly what I was expecting out of the gates there from St. Louis, but yeah, interesting hockey game. San Jose seemed to have their game going. Kind of makes me wonder what it would have been like if we would have actually been there, because I kind of think we could give San Jose a game, but we didn't make it, so.
Yeah, that obviously, I mean, that ship has sailed. It's been a little while, but I think it's so hard and so difficult to it's so difficult to understand like where you'd be. The playoffs have kind of indicated what it's gone against the trend of the NHL. I mean, it's the regular season is clearly a different season, which we've always said, but this was maybe the first NHL season that I saw that speed and quickness, where agility and quickness and that was kind of what won you games, and it wasn't toughness, it wasn't heavy hockey, if that's what you want to call it. But we're seeing that that's not the case in the playoffs. It's clearly a different game altogether. It's very heavy. I wouldn't call the Sharks a very quick team, but they play a very heavy team. But you can't beat their defense and moving the puck. That's something that the Oilers are desperately in need of, and I think if we were to put them in the playoffs, as big as we were, we just didn't have that puck moving D. So, I think that's we'll talk about that today. What's your Twitter handle, Mike?
I am at Mike Dursa.
All right, easy enough. Sorry, I just want to make sure you get the right credit here. There we go. So if you're on Twitter now, there you have it. Twitter or YouTube or Facebook or wherever. Now your name nicely appears there underneath your beautiful hazy background there. We can see a bit of a 99 there.
Yeah, I don't know what is happening with Skype here, but it's pretty interesting. I feel like I'm in the Matrix.
Yeah. So, we've got obviously a lot of news to cover. There are one of the big things, of course, is the hiring of Mr. Holland as the new GM. What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, as much as people wanted Kelly McCrimmon, that obviously got stripped away. I think Vegas knew that they had somebody special there, so they locked him up. And then I think you know, there was probably a lot of people that were interviewed, but nobody won over, the powers that be. So they saw, Iserman being put into the fold there in Detroit, and just decided to go with a guy who's got a wealth of experience. Yeah, it's not all good experience, but he definitely has a lot of experience. And, you know, people will probably argue this, but I think it was probably a safe bet. So um, I'm not against it. I think it's something that the proof is in the pudding. I know personally, in my own experience, I have some bad experience that if I was given another opportunity with what happened, there's things I would do differently. And I'm kind of going to give Ken Holland the benefit of the doubt, thinking that he's probably in the same boat. I like the fact that immediately, upon being hired, he told Hitchcock that he wasn't going to be his guy going forward, and didn't waste any time with that decision. He got right after it, and a new era is going to begin. I think he's going to look at everybody in the organization in the position of making decisions for the on ice product and evaluate whether or not they should stay or go. I don't think anybody is safe, but I don't think he's going to pour some diesel fuel on it and light a match either. I think he's going to be methodical and do a real forensic audit, if we want to use that term.
Yeah. So if you look at Ken Holland and I mean, there's you can point out. I think the biggest concern most people have with him is the fact that he's a little bit older. He's clearly reaching retirement age at 63. And there's a lot in the Oilers community that would like to see a younger guy, somebody, if you really want somebody like Kyle Dubas, who is a little bit more, analytics based, if you will, somebody that's willing to look at some of the different sides of it. I don't know that that's what the Oilers need right now, and I'm not, and I also don't know that that's what Ken Holland doesn't bring that. I think what Ken Holland brings is an experienced general manager, somebody with connections in the league. I would say that after his presser, where they announced that he was coming on board, I was a little bit more likely to be accepting of him. He sounded like he had a bit of a plan that he had an idea of what it is he wanted to accomplish, and he's willing to make the tough decisions. That's the thing you get with an older guy, right? Is he's made tough decisions before. He is not. I think one of the challenges that everybody has is we don't want to see another Chiarelli in place. That's making these type of wild trades, especially given the situation this team is in. Because if you get a guy that comes in that he wants to make too big of a splash at the wrong time, or he's, in my view, I mean, we should be scared more of the guy without connections, the guy that's a terrible negotiator, the guy that's going to give away the farm with every trade, right? I don't think that's Holland. I had a very healthy look at his trades in his tenure with Detroit, and there was nothing too crazy there. I wouldn't say that he lost a lot of trades and he won a lot of trades. It was pretty even mix, and all in all, I wasn't upset with what I saw. Now, you also can't deny that the guy's a winner. He had Detroit in a few different cups. Some say he was the beginning of molding their leader now, Stevie Y, right? Of course, that was at the beginning of Stevie Y's entrance into the front office. I just don't think, I think that the big concern is the age, and I'm not overly worried about that. I could see him spending a couple of years in the GM role, and then retiring, or not retiring, but retiring maybe to a higher office with the Oilers. But in the interim, molding and creating a new era for a new GM, somebody to come up and be the successor in that time, rather than having to do a full-on GM search. We'll see. Obviously, there was was it Drieger that reported that Holland was out, and then and then subsequently said that he's in, and obviously Holland wanted to stay in the game. I think there's no doubt he's a respected GM in the league. That to me is key. What Mike? What's your thoughts? What's the first thing you see him tackling over the summer here?
Well, I've seen a couple of people put out there, the whole trade Nuge thing. One of the things I picked up on in his press conference, and I was listening to it kind of driving to BC at the time, so I caught most of it, but there was a little bit where I missed. But one of the things, like, if you key into buzzwords, I guess, one of the things he said over and over again was stability. If you're preaching stability, trading Nuge right away doesn't seem like a very stable thing to do. I think the first thing he does right away here, before we get into sort of July 1st draft kind of stuff, is head coach. I think that's the first move that happens, and that's basically what he said. He's going to find a head coach. Beyond that, I kind of think that, as much as people want to push the trade Lucic and deal Lucic for a ham sandwich or whatever you can get, I don't think that. I don't think we Ken Holland is Miracle Max from Princess Bride. I think he's a man that will make moves that he can make, and I'm just not sure that Lucic deal is out there. And personally, you saw a lot of smoke when he did his Vancouver interview, and people were suggesting, Louis Eriksson for Milan Lucic. That's not a deal I make, because the way I see it is they both contribute about the same offensively, but at least Lucic brings a physical aspect to his game. People don't want to hear it, but I think he's a fourth-line guy. It's an awful expensive price tag for a fourth-liner, but I think that's kind of the bullet you have to swallow, because I don't think buying him out gets you anything either, and I'm not a fan of trading him along with a first-round pick and something else just to move the guy. To me, that doesn't. Yeah, you get rid of a bad decision, but it costs you even more. So I'm not a fan of that kind of theology. For me, I think you try to improve your back end right away. And to me, that's either Matt Benning, Chris Russell, or Sekera, or a combination of two of them, maybe even three if you could swing that. But I don't know if that's really a doable thing. But you definitely need to improve your back end, and you already have some people that should be pushing for a spot down in Bakersfield. Toby Reeder, I don't think is coming back. So no. I think his salary was $2 million or something like that. That's another should be, you should be able to get one or two guys that can contribute a little bit, and then you make a decision on whether you circle back to somebody like Alex Chason,
Yeah, so I mean, it'd be interesting what Chason feels he's worth after one really good season, and whether or not. And my view of the whole Chason situation is, he'll play the market and see what's out there. I think it'll be a lot like Patty Maroon, where folks will be a little bit hesitant to overpay Chason. He's not really. It's not like he's all of a sudden proven himself as a consistent scorer. it's a one-off for him, and he got really the call over because Gulletson was a big fan. So we'll see. What do you see success as being for this club? And how much patience do you have? Maybe you, Mike, maybe you've got all the patience in the world. Are you going to be, win or lose, you're going to be an Oilers fan at the end of the year? And and then the other question, I guess, is what's success to you for Ken Holland's first year in office?
Yeah, well, I don't know. I think after the Chiarelli debacle here, I think we've pushed back, expectations, just based on reality. I mean, there's a lot of things that happened last year that really, almost set us back further. The acquisitions of, Brandon Manning. I'm not gonna, it is what it is. But that's something else to deal with. And what do you do there? I guess with the Brandon Manning thing, it's probably easy to buy him out because, the guy's getting scratched in the AHL.
Well, yeah, no, I get, we could get into the weeds on some of these things, but what to you is success? I mean, are we talking this has got to be a playoff team after this year? Do we have to see a certain salary cap situation? Do we need, what do we need, right, in order for you to be happy as a fan this upcoming year? And for that matter, is there anything, or are you looking further down the road?
Personally, I look at next year and really this summer and starting pretty soon here. We're about 6 weeks away from where Ken Holland has to grab a shovel and start digging us out of the mess. And, for me, I think to get back to being a contender, I think it's a two-year scenario. I will be happy as a pig and if by next spring, this is a playoff team and it's pushing. But is that realistic? I'm not sure. There's a lot of things that need to happen. Mikko Koskinen to me is still a question mark. So that is an area that, even Holland recognized he probably needs to get at least a backup goalie and probably a 1B to push Mikko and just basically give the guy support, because he hasn't been a full-time NHL goaltender in his career, right? So that's a big question mark, and goaltending is not important unless you don't have it. The defense needs to improve. We need to get a few more puck-moving defensemen in the lineup, and secondary scoring. I think Leon and Connor, to ask them to duplicate what they did last year exactly verbatim is probably asking for, to be let down. I think they're always going to put up good numbers, but to do what they did last year again, I don't know if that's realistic. So to me, it's peripheral stuff, and it shouldn't be that hard to do, but it all is going to take time. I'll be happy if they're in the playoffs next year, but realistically for me, I think this team is 2 years away from being a contender.
Yeah, contender's a tough word to use in this situation. I don't know that, here's the way I look at it. There's a couple ways I look at it. One is we didn't move much from the team we were when we hit the playoffs a couple of years back. We weren't an overly different team, other than we've suffered on the injury front with Sekera and Clefbaum being injured the greater part of those 2 seasons. I hounded on this all last season, and I'll hound on it again until they change what's going on, and that is puck moving defensemen. I think, and this is my my view of it, and I'm not going to defend Reeder here by any stretch, but but he's part and parcel of this. And those that have listened to the podcast, recorded live or otherwise, know this is my thoughts on this. Is you have two guys, Connor and Leon, that move the puck up and down the ice with or without puck moving defensemen. They are special players. No one can deny that. You have a guy like Toby Reeder, Lucic, any number of the guys on the team that played last year, that they need to grab the puck on the fly, get that puck out of the zone, get the right type of play made specifically for them in order to be effective. They're not taking the puck from our zone and going end to end like Draisaitl can and like McDavid can and Nuge can to some extent, right? But he doesn't have quite that talent level. And so you need those guys. And for the most part, they weren't there. I mean, one of our best defensemen this year was Darnell Nurse. And but that's not his game. He doesn't bring that to the table. When we talk about Darnell moving the puck up north, it's on his stick. It's not tape-to-tape pass through the neutral zone or wherever. It's usually on his stick and into the zone, which is fine. And if you find some players that can play with him in that regard, then that's great. But he just doesn't move the puck. And then, of course, the bottom half of our D pairing is sorely wanting of that skill, both puck moving and defensive skill. When you're finding reasons to praise Benning, you've got a problem on defense, right? Our defense is not at best. They're all sixth guys, on the bottom half. When Clefbaum and Sekera, well, I guess it's maybe unfair to Larson. Larson is a decent second line defenseman, but the problem is, I mean, we definitely have to look at getting defensemen into the fold. Everybody keeps talking about wingers. While I think we need wingers, I just think, it's got to start from somewhere. Look at the team that's having the most success in the Cup run right now, right? It's obviously San Jose. And what do they have the best of? They've got the best puck-moving defenseman in the league right now. He's got something like 13 or 14 assists through the playoffs right now. I would be surprised if there was a player. I'm lost for stats, but I'll look at the Oilers stats. Was there a defenseman on the Oilers that had 13 assists last year? Maybe Nurse did.
Yeah, Nurse had a good season, but
yeah. Let's check this out. Let's fact check. I feel like I'm out of touch with what the Oilers did last season now. Just seems so long ago. So anyway, if I had to say success for me, while everybody's pounding away on the wingers, I would say success for me is finding the proper D men for the Oilers. So Nurse had 31 assists. That's through 82 games. There you go. And Clef had 23. Larson had 17 through 82 games. So Carlson almost has as many as him through. They've probably played 7, 14, about 20 games so far. 21. Matt Benning didn't even make 13 assists. Chris Russell just made 13. So there you go. We're in desperate need of puck moving defensemen. There's no doubt. At Fake Canadian, we got a comment there. San Jose fired McClellan. Best move that organization ever made. I tend to agree with you. I thought McClellan was a real sore point for me on this team. I think that his early success was maybe not the success that it was not all on McClellan. We just kind of had a team that wanted to gel around Connor, I think, and make it there that season. Your thoughts on the next coach right now? Again, the Dave Tippett name comes up.
Yeah.
I heard, and right or wrong, and comment on this and comment on Tippett. I heard that he was with Seattle, with the Seattle organization, which to me would say that he's. You know what? I've never looked it up. So anyway, your thoughts on Dave Tippett?
I'm not sure about the Seattle front. I hadn't heard that, but I heard that Buffalo was in on the hunt for him too. I saw, Bob Stauffer was giving Tyler Hoopka a lot of praise for his poll he was running last week, and Todd Nelson was running away with it, and kind of that I'm leaning that way too. I'm not a big trap guy. That's not my thing. To me, that's not Oilers hockey, and that's not something that I really want to see Connor McDavid playing. A team with McDavid. I want to see more of more of an 80s Oilers run and gun, high octane kind of offense. But at the same time, until our defense improves, you can't get away with that. I mean, you're putting a lot of pressure on your D, and you're also putting a lot of pressure on your goaltending. So I guess maybe a delicate balance between run and gun and kind of trap hockey is probably where it needs to be. I just got to laugh at the one comment I read earlier. Somebody who was bugging me about having a professional camera tape me. No, it's just my laptop, and I'm stuck in the Matrix here. So that's where we're at.
Where did you see that, or that was just on Twitter?
That was on your Periscope or whatever feed off of your site.
Oh yeah. Nice. All right. Now, sorry, I got a little bit distracted here. So here's the thing, right? So that's a common thing that people are talking about with Tippett is that he plays he wants the team to play a bit of a trap style. Yet there's a lot of players that when I've anything I've read about him would defend that and actually enjoyed playing with him and for him, and think that he's anything but a defensive minded coach in that regard, and that it was the team the team that he had. I guess the thing is, and this is well known with Tippett, is that he doesn't like younger players just coming into the team, right? Like he's all about making sure that youth seasons, if you will, in the minors. So if you're of the opinion that we need help from our prospects that are playing tonight in Bakersfield or otherwise, then you're going to be disappointed. I think if Tippett's on the behind the bench, because I don't think they're going to get that necessarily get that chance. So by the way, those that are watching and care, Bakersfield, there's about 6 minutes left in the first overtime period. It's currently 1-1, and of course Bakersfield is down 3-1. Gambardella scored again today, which I believe puts him in the top of the AHL scoring race, which is relevant to what we're talking about today and some of the prospects that may or may not be coming around. So what about Nelson excites you the most?
Well, he was here before and um, got production out of Nail Yakupov. So, I mean, and it's just kind of an upbeat, um, I think these guys, some like Nuge, how many coaches has the guy been on? You know, there's, I think you get hammered and hammered with sort of a, you know, um, not really negativity, but not really uplifting. Um, like sometimes I would listen to McClellan and I was ready to go to sleep. Like it was just mundane, the same thing over and over again. Hitch for a while was a breath of fresh air just because he was positive and uplifting. But I think, and I don't know what Holland's thinking is on it, but for me personally, I think Hitch is, getting a little bit long in the tooth and maybe his health isn't where it needs to be a full-time NHL coach. I think it takes a lot out of you. It's a demanding job, not only physically, but mentally. And I see Todd Nelson as a bit of a younger guy, still got lots in the tank and just a positive guy. And I think the younger generation responds to that. Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with him.
Yeah, okay. No, I get that. I mean it's been known and everybody's always talked about it is Nelson's work with youth or the younger players and of course, this is still a very young team. Still a very young core of players. So obviously Nelson can have maybe some effect on that if he was the guy. I like the fact that Holland came in and was quick to say, right? Like he's not.
Yeah, not bashful.
He said, look, like Hitchcock's not going to be the coach next year, so we're going to find a coach. It just told me he actually has he's got a plan in his head, right? And it doesn't include Ken Hitchcock. So, he's watched the Oilers play. It's not like he's new to the Oilers. He's seen them. He's a NHL GM. He hasn't gone anywhere, so he knows exactly what the struggles are, and he's been around Hitchcock, a ton of time. So he also knows what kind of coach Hitchcock is. My guess is, he's not going to put Tippett behind the bench if Tippett's, mode of operation is going to be a pure defensive team, right? And the reason being, right, is you have a couple of guys that have, a tremendous amount of offensive skill that you want to unleash, right? Or if he does bring that guy, and Tippett is that guy, which, I'm not convinced that he's a trap type of coach. I'm convinced that he's a smart coach that, was given teams that had to play the trap, and maybe the Oilers are that team. We'll see what they get for defensemen over the course of the off season. But if they, my thought is that whoever that person is will be asked to make sure that Connor and Draisaitl and the guys that need it get a little bit more free reign on the offensive side. What's your thought on? It's about 50-50 in my mind. People that think Bouchard should be put in the lineup right away. If you had to make the decision today, knowing what you know, would you have him in the lineup next year?
I don't think so.
No.
I think when I saw him, it was last summer. There was I think it was some of the rookies and prospects playing against each other, and I kind of went there with my mom and watched, and we missed a few minutes of the first period, which was kind of disappointing. But he played with Yamamoto, They had pretty good chemistry. He's got a hell of a shot. Like his snapshot, I mean, from top of the circles is next level. Like that's NHL ready. He missed the net, but I could just tell by the way it hit the glass. It scared me. And not a lot of shots scare me. And I was just walking by. That was when we were just first walking in. And I'm like, holy shit, Bouchard can unload that pill. And, he got a couple of points. But the thing with him that I noticed, and I think other people, like I think Ryan Rashog was talking about the other day, it's his recognition of when it's time to, exit the zone on D and hightail it back. And I noticed it there at that level. So to, be playing in the AHL and then the NHL, it's two different steps beyond. And I just don't think he's there yet. I mean, this is a year ago. He's played a whole year of junior since, he's played at the World Juniors. Now he's playing in the AHL playoffs, and he's getting points down there in the AHL. But, I think, send him, see what he's got at training camp. That's kind of how I feel. But realistically, I think he needs another half season to a full season in the AHL before he's, an NHL caliber defenseman. And there's nothing wrong with that. But what I do think is, I think they kind of went the other way with Caleb Jones. I think when they sent Caleb down, he was a third pairing NHL defenseman. They were trying to give him second pairing minutes and, have him fill the void of, Chiarelli's mistakes of not replacing Sekera. And it wasn't fair to Caleb. I think they did Caleb a favor last year by sending him down, but I think they did the team itself a disservice. I think he was the third pairing D.
Yeah, okay. So, I mean, I'm not... what's the best way to look at this in my mind? I mean, I do look at it, as Jones was... it's just the wrong time of year to bring him up, right? You certainly don't want a guy like that who you see an obvious caliber, NHL caliber defenseman in. I just don't think you want to see him playing in the NHL at that level, at the extra minutes that he shouldn't be playing at this point in his career. Losing the confidence of that he should have. I'm a big Jones fan. I mean, he is.
You know what, Mike? He showed well at the start, and then they kind of got they whet their appetite, so they tried to give him more and more and more, and put him in over his head. They sent him to the deep end when he was just ready for the shallow end and to the rope. That's how I feel with that.
Yeah, and that's it. So so he's getting a good. Sorry, my light just about went for a fall here. He's going for a good run in the playoffs. Hopefully, Bakersfield's in intermission right now in the game. It's still 1-1. He's if they win tonight, of course, they get another kick at it. He's having a nice run. He's having a good playoffs. He's a hell of a player. He's a smart player. Clearly, he's, I think it's clear enough for me that he's destined at some point for the NHL. I hope that he has a great training camp and he shows that he can be there. I think if I was to slot anybody ahead, of Bouchard right now, it'd probably be Jones, and that's just from a maturity and a confidence level. I think Bouchard has the higher ceiling, at least offensively. We're going to see defensively. I only got to see him a couple of games over the course of the year, and then I have, of course, I had Sean, the Oil Night on for a recorded podcast a couple of days ago. We talked about Bouchard, so you can go to theoilnight.ca and you can check his write-up on Bouchard. But he had talked a little bit about his defensive game. That it's got a little bit better, but he still needs work, right? That shot, though, you're right. Is I was, when we were talking about it the other day, it's such a unique shot in my mind because it looks like it's taking forever to load up, but he seems to manage to get the shot away anyway. And he's a big kid. Like he's tall. But he can just blister it, and it's got kind of a weird, weird trajectory to it, and it gets in the net. He scores a lot of goals, and he makes some nice plays. He's, smart offensively, but Sean's take on him was that he might get a little bit lazy in the defensive zone, like a little bit too relaxed. And that's where he loses it. So hopefully when he gets up this year, both in the AHL, hopefully they go for a longer run. Tonight's can't be the night. Let's hope that he picks up, from the guys out there, some solid defensive play. Yamamoto, what's your thoughts on him? He's been on and off, injured. Any thoughts? Did you watch some of the Bakersfield games down the stretch? Didn't you? Well, I watched a number of them, but I don't know if you did.
Not really, Mike. And he's been hurt for a while. I think he injured his wrist and had wrist surgery. So I don't really have a lot on there. I think it's almost a bit of a lost year for him. All I really have to go on is when I saw him last summer, and for a smaller guy, he can skate and he can make plays, and he's, for a small guy, sort of probably not quite as strong, but there's a familiarity for me with him and kind of a Theo Fleury, honestly, without the pest side, I guess.
Yeah, so obviously the last year he had in Spokane, while he started out slow because he had the games in Edmonton, and then he seemed to sulk a little bit when he got back to Spokane. Whether that's the reason or not, he came out slow. But and then the second half of that season, after he went to the World Juniors, was legendary, right? Of course, there was some excitement among Oilers fans as him and Tyler Benson were lighting it up on both sides, in the dub. And he was phenomenal. I have not been overly excited about him when I've seen him play at the NHL level. And there have been moments where I thought, there's something there. I just don't know. Maybe it's the coaching. We haven't, at Fake Canadian said it on the Twitter feed if you're watching on Periscope. That McClellan, the best move San Jose made was getting rid of McClellan. Might have been the best move we made in Edmonton. I'm not a big McClellan fan after watching him, throughout the first part of last season. And then I'm not sure that Hitch is the right guy for a guy like Yamo as well. Maybe Tippett won't be the right guy. Maybe there is no right guy. I don't know. My point being is maybe we just haven't seen the right system for Yamamoto. Sometimes a guy can get caught up in that. I know we've got a Bakersfield fan watching live on Twitter. That's Glitter and Guns. She goes to most of the Bakersfield games, and she's a big fan of Ty Ratty, watching him play. Says he's quite fast. But there's another guy that I think coaching is a factor in his success on the team, and maybe Yamamoto's that guy too. They're both smaller, speedy guys. Maybe if we get a new coach in, that can change that. But as of now, there's nothing that has really been overly fantastic for me, other than what could be out of Yamamoto, right? Like he went on a run with Spokane. I don't remember how many games, but I think it was over 10 games and 20 plus points or whatever. But the way I look at it is I would not be surprised if we don't really ever see him play a full-time role on this team. We'll see. Thoughts on Puljujärvi?
Well, I'm kind of in the same. I don't blame Yamamoto's inability to succeed right now on coaching or style of play or any of that. I think it's just it's a big difference, being the superstar in junior, from being the superstar in the NHL. Connor McDavid aside, I think Yamamoto needs his time in the AHL to realize the difference between playing against boys to playing against men, and become a point per game guy down in the AHL. When you're healthy, and then you get your opportunity in the NHL. The speed of the game is different, the size of the players is different, and just your timing is a completely different thing. And the same thing for Jesse. I think the Oilers tried to put him into an NHL lineup, and basically because they didn't have enough horses to pull the cart. And yes, he's got size, he's got speed, he's got skill. So I think they sort of rushed him a little bit. But I also think there's a little bit more to the whole story than what we're getting. I mean, people want to push, the Oilers have failed him, but I also think his agent might be failing him too. I think there's, an expectation that he was going to be an NHL player. So I think they frowned a little bit on the farm thing. And also, that injury there might have been holding him back. So, I think you've got a couple of things that were going against him. Trying to make him an NHLer when he probably wasn't really ready, from an organizational and an agent standpoint. Plus, I think the kid was fighting a nagging injury for who knows how long. So,
yeah.
I want to see what he's like healthy. I don't want to see him traded. I don't think you get anything for the asset that could potentially turn out to blossom into, something worthwhile. I think it's too early to write him off. You need to try to develop that, because I think if you're trading him, what's going to be the return? Are you going to get a 4th round pick for him or 5th? Well, to me, that's not worth it. We don't have too many 5th round picks that succeed in Edmonton. Never have. I guess Holland did in Detroit, so maybe there's something to look forward to. But yeah.
Yeah, I what's your thoughts? First off, at -824 on the Periscope feed says, let's not trade Sekera. I've not heard any Sekera trade talk yet. Would you keep Sekera around?
You need to improve your D. I mean, if you look around, look at San Jose. Most people talk about Clefbaum being our best D. Where does he fit in San Jose's D? Is he top 4? I don't know. I know he goes behind Burns, Carlson, and Vlasic for me. So, and where would Sekera rank? Would he even play on San Jose's D? I mean, that's kind of what you got to look at if you want to be a playoff Stanley Cup contending team. Is every piece of your puzzle needs to improve. There's certain pieces that are cornerstones that I think you need to build around for the future. But let's face it, Reg is not a young guy anymore, and he's playing on basically 2 bad legs. He can make some nice passes, and he made our D look better, but that's really not saying a lot. We have to compare our defense to the best Ds in the NHL, not just to Oilers D, what it was before, when you've got guys like Brandon Manning and Chris Weidman and the cast of characters that we were putting on our D in that 3rd pairing spot. You need to improve it from top to bottom.
Now, what if if you're Holland and here's a trade that will probably be equally as unpopular as popular. I bet you Oilers World would be 50-50 on this. And somebody said, look, I'll take Lucic off your hands, but you give me Puljujärvi as well. Would you take that? nothing back. I mean, we're just talking complete salary dump, and the only way to do it is to let go of a would-be potentially good prospect. Could bite you in the ass.
So you're losing Lucic and Puljujärvi for nothing?
Yeah, I'm not sure what you'd get back. So
no salary retention there?
Well, my guess is if that kind of happens, if that plays out, we probably retain still about half of that.
Yeah, if you're retaining salary, then I'm not sure it makes if you're licking your chops at that. But if you're losing him and you gain that $6 million in cap space, you pull the trigger. But like if it's Lucic for Eriksson along with Puljujärvi, no, I don't do that.
Yeah, that Eriksson thing keeps coming up.
Yeah,
I've read that a few times. Not sure how I feel about that. That's the when I look at this team and I think about what Ken Holland has in front of him is I think you got to be a little bit like that guy that bartered the paperclip all the way up to the house in Saskatchewan.
Yeah.
Right?
Kijiji it up.
Yeah, exactly. So don't be surprised if you see Lucic's name on Kijiji tomorrow. Trade up for a pen.
Lucic for a paperclip. Perfect.
Yeah, for a paperclip. No, I mean, like we are going. This is like a claw your way back to success lineup right now, and or you need some things to work. I mean that's the other factor of this. Is it? The NHL is kind of a weird place. Some years is a team that's not supposed to do well might do well because they got the right coach that has the right style for that particular team. I don't think that this team has the horses to be that lucky team that makes it to the playoffs because they find the right coach. So we got to get rid of a couple players and luck out with a couple of players, but at the end of the day, I mean, I don't know what you. There's all sorts of trade scenarios that are around, and you just look at the Athletic or TSN or Sportsnet or wherever you get your news, the Journal, and they've got all sorts of different scenarios that may or may not play out. I don't know who you trade Lucic for, right? Like, and without taking salary back, and I don't know in what world that doesn't bite you in the ass anyway, because you still like. I love having Lucic's toughness on this team. We just don't like him in a first or second line role. Right. And if you put him on the fourth line, then the only problem I have with him is he's a $6 million fourth liner.
Yep.
And so. It's this is really a damned if you do, damned if you don't scenario. But probably people will roast me for this, but I actually think we might be better off keeping Lucic, unless if the absolute best darling of a deal shows up that we get back a significant amount of salary, and buying him out is not an option. That is the absolute worst possible scenario. For us and Lucic, because then we get nothing, but a hell of a big pay that we, against our cap for longer than his contract term is right now. It is bar none. Well, it's the second worst thing that Chiarelli did, and it's not Lucic's fault. It's just that it's so damning. Like this, the whole contract is, with the no trade clause, with the buyout proof, the way the bonuses are structured, with the length of the contract. It's no good for anybody. And then with McClellan coming in and thinking that I'm paying a guy $6 million, I'm not going to put him on the fourth line. That killed us for how long?
Yeah.
anyway,
wouldn't put him on the third line, let alone the fourth.
Yeah. So, there's that. We had sort of the makings of, some good run, like some good pushes throughout the year last year. So I think that, if you find sort of the right chemistry and you're not bogged down by injury, and there's still the case of Connor's knee, which we don't talk about because I think we don't want to talk about it, right? Like, where's he at? I know he's still wearing his brace. If you look at any of the pictures, he doesn't seem to post any pictures, but his girlfriend posts a ton.
Yeah,
she's usually the one in them, but you see the odd ones with him, and you can see the brace underneath his pants. So he's still wearing a knee brace around. So he's obviously going through some rehab. I would suspect that he's all right, but we don't. It's the off season, so we're not. They're not going to say the least bit of an update around him, right? I'd love to know. All I know is he's good enough that he can walk around, and I think he was in Orlando last week and wherever.
Yeah, Disneyland or Disney World, one or the other.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's that going on. Draisaitl. Did you I actually don't have a lot more time here tonight, but I want to talk. Did you see the Draisaitl goal? the little I wouldn't even call it a sauce pass, but the flip pass from the other guy in front of Draisaitl for the as he's skating towards the net, and then he just bats it out of the air as it's going past him into the net. Did you see that?
World Championships.
Yeah, it was a warm up game. All right. Well, it's somewhere hidden in my Twitter feed. And for those that are listening, if you get a chance, you've got to search out that Draisaitl goal. It is one of the prettiest goals that I've seen in a while. Other than maybe there's another goal that's making the rounds. It was a shootout goal. I think Norway or Slovakia and Norway, where the guy goes for the toe drag and then uses he goes and flips it back, where he pulls it back, and then it looks like he's gonna drag it on the toe of the stick, but instead he like pops it in the net, and the goalie's waiting for the move, but that was the move. So the toe is heels facing up, toe down, and he uses that to push it through into the net. Some talented players coming up in the league. Anyway, okay. Let's. What do you want to finish off with here? Let's call it a night at midnight. What's left on the Oilers' plate right now? I mean, the big news, obviously, Ken Holland, what he's got to do, and then the coach, where the coaching is going to go. There's all sorts of rumors about who Holland is bringing in. Horkoff's name was brought up, and I threatened to fight anybody who said he wouldn't be a good fit on the team. There were no takers. Of course, they did say in the same tweet that I was kidding. What's left? What else have you heard? Any news you've heard that might be relevant to talk about tonight?
I don't know. Do you have an update on Bakersfield?
Yeah, no, I've been watching and constantly refreshing the Bakersfield Twitter feed, the Condors Twitter feed, but no shots are 18-15 in overtime right now. 14 minutes left in the second overtime. So that's the latest.
I guess kind of what I'm interested in right now is, I think Ken Holland, he's getting to meet, the brass upstairs from kind of the old regime, what was, and the thing that intrigues me the most first before we get into, trades and who we're drafting and all that is what changes are going to go on. And I've got my fingers crossed, that he's gonna figure out on the pro scouting front who needs to pack their shit, as Mike Commodore would say, and also I kind of have my eye on Mr. Schwartz there. What's going to go down there? Is he staying or going? Because that to me is an area of concern.
Yeah, my actual feeling on Schwartz, and that's funny that you bring that up, is because I figure he's gone 100%. I think we've just been middling too many years. There are some good goaltending coaches out there, and we need to find one, right? Like,
yeah, but I also, it's a bit of a question mark for me too, because Holland didn't waste any time to get rid of Hitch, so I'm not sure.
Well, yeah, I know, but that's kind of like the big one, right? Like, and my suspicion is, that's the one area that he knows best, right? Like, it's easy to come into a team and you look at the team and you say, all right, here's the place I'm going to make the first move, and so he did that, right? It's maybe less obvious to Holland to come in and say, goaltending coaching is a real problem, other than maybe he talks to his pro scouts who say, let's shoot high on any Oilers goalie because they don't cover the top of the net, including the one that's like 10 feet tall. It's so I just and I've talked to some NHL goalies about goaltending coaching and how much of an effect that they actually have on the coach, and each of them had a bit of a different story. But the one thing that I think we see is a very similar style being played out by any goalie that ends up in Edmonton after a while. And I don't, and whether or not that's, Schwartz's fault or not, I think he needs to, I think he needs to, do something different with the guys and affect a little bit of change on the goaltending side. You see teams that seem to get the most out of goalies no matter who plays there, right? And we've been lackluster in that department for as long as he's been goaltending coach. I wouldn't even say the year that everybody always talks about how great Talbot was the year we made it to the playoffs. I never thought he was that great, to be fair, right? I don't know what you thought, but I thought he, made some saves, but it was never spectacular. I thought we outscored our way into a lot of games there. I think, what I want to see is the Bobrovsky style of goalie once in a while, that if you have a shitty game, he saves you the game, right? And we've not had a game that a goalie's come in and saved us a game and won us a couple extra 2 points, right? I figure a goalie should be good for 8 to 10 points in a season, right? Where you looked, like shit. Look at Calgary, right? I mean, there's, you talked about Calgary's offense. When their offense wasn't producing, their team was shit, right? And their goalies kept them in those games, and they won those important games, right? In the regular season. But happy to see them go out in 4 straight in the playoffs. Can't have a live pod without bashing Calgary for at least a couple seconds. Bush just about scored is the word from Glitter and Guns, who I asked to make sure we get an update on the game. So Bush is at least his shot is making a noticeable place on the Condors lineup. I would love to know how he's doing defensively. I haven't. It's just been hard to get to watch all the games that I want. Anyway, so back to Schwartz. I just think it's time for a change, right? Like he's been with the team now for, I want to say 3 or 4 years now, maybe 5. He was the Oil Kings goaltending coach, if I'm not mistaken, before he moved up, and then he was was it the Bears or the Oil Kings?
I think it might have been all 3. Yeah.
Yeah, and I know he was doing double duty for a little while. I just think there's got to be a guy out there that is really good, that we can put on this team. And
I got one more comment on the Schwartz thing.
Yeah. Okay, you go ahead.
After we did your OilersLive Cup there in Calgary, I on the Sunday after, I went and talked to my uncle for a bit. He lived about 15 minutes from the hotel, and brought up Dustin Schwartz's name, and kind of said my little spiel there, and he's like, yeah, well, kind of know somebody that's related to him. And then he said, in his defense, you can't turn Pintos into Ferraris, So a goaltender coach can take a goalie and kind of do a little bit of tinkering, and you can help improve him a little bit, but you aren't taking Mike Vernon and turning him into Martin Brodeur. That just doesn't happen. You can tinker a little bit and you can improve a guy and help him a little bit, but you can't do a ton with him. But for me personally, what I see is we've got a goaltender that I think on skates is tiptoeing on 6'9". If he came out of his crease and challenged shooters, there'd be no net left. And kind of what I see, what I've noticed and I've picked up on, because I'm watching him pretty closely, is I don't think Mikko's a great skater. If you get him to push hard, being that large frame and those large legs, the guy should be able to, with one hard push, travel 15 to 20 feet across the ice. It shouldn't be no problem for him to get side to side, when passes go across. So he should be able to play an aggressive style, but he doesn't. He plays pretty much on his end line, and he's down and he's low. He's a big goalie, and you make him into a mouse. You take away his strength, and to me, I don't think that's something that he would have been taught his whole life growing up. I would have thought he would have been aggressive, big, bulking, hulky frame, challenging shooters. And to me, that would be his strength. And for whatever reason, we're making him down. And people forget Talbot wasn't a small goalie either. I think Talbot's 6'4". He's a big guy too. And I disagree with you a little bit on the year that Talbot had a good year. I don't think he was lights out and Dominic Hasek, flopping around, making all kinds of wild and crazy saves. But he was stopping the pucks that he should stop, and a few of the stops that he shouldn't make.
Yeah, no,
and that's kind of what you need.
That's not what I was saying. I completely agree with that. He was stopping the pucks he should. I'm just saying he wasn't stellar. Like, for us to think that he was still, in my mind, a middle of the pack goalie that year. Right?
Well, he played well positionally, but he wasn't Grand Fuhrer. I'll go with that.
And I would say that, and I would argue that that he won a lot of games for us that year. I would say he didn't lose any games for us, which is equally important. Yeah.
Steady goaltending.
Yeah, and that's what he was. So I like Talbot. I think he's a backup though, and I think he should have been a backup that year. Can you imagine if we had a Bobrovsky in net or something, or whoever? Of course, Bobrovsky brings a whole set of other challenges like Habibu.
I disagree with that assessment, Mike. I think he was a starting goalie that year. I think he was kind of a starting goalie from that time where he came in from when Lundqvist was out in New York. I think he kind of proved that he can play net. But I don't know. There's been a huge regression. I don't know if it's a Tommy Salo kind of confidence issue or, becoming a dad and having twins and all that. His life and his regular style might have got thrown out of whack. I don't know. I wouldn't be surprised, though, honestly, myself, if, 6 months from now, he's back to being a good goaltender again under a different goalie coach.
Yeah, I might be. I'm not gonna lie. Don't get me wrong. I like Talbot, and certainly his family is they're make Edmonton home. They're good folks. But he was awful in the year after. I would have to say he certainly wasn't great then. But I was just never of the belief that he was the guy. And so it was not like overly surprised when he didn't have a good season the following year. But anyway, you know what? It doesn't matter. He's not coming back. I'd be surprised if he ever did. And I certainly don't think I'd want to if I was in his situation.
No.
But we're stuck with what we've got, and the interesting thing will be as we see in Bakersfield, Skinner was in tonight. It'll be interesting to see what is there maybe an heir apparent coming through the system, Rodriguez or Skinner, or is it Starrett? Starrett had a tough game, is my understanding, and I didn't watch. It sounds like
Did you think at all for a sec, Mike, that tweet that Kelly put out was almost like phishing?
Oh, Kelly Talbot?
Yeah.
No, I maybe I have too much trust in people. The one can't wait to be back in Edmonton. That one.
Yeah, they were flying back on the plane to Edmonton. Can't wait to get home.
Yeah, I mean the way I look, right? Like all of these folks are regular people too, right? And just like you and I might tweet when we're on our way back to see friends and family, it wouldn't surprise me if she, if that's kind of what she was doing. I know, or so I heard. I shouldn't say I know, but what I've heard is, they enjoyed their time in Edmonton with certain people and that, and so, I think I don't think it would be fishing in terms of, seeing if there's an opportunity for them to come back. Maybe there is, though. Maybe I'm wrong in my assessment of him.
I sort of said, "Wow, is that her just trying to put it out there that they like Edmonton?" And here we are.
Yeah, it's possible. I would be quite all right if he was in a backup role. What I'm hoping for, though, is not to have a guy like, and I think you and I disagree a little bit on Talbot, but I'm hoping that we have a guy that can come in and ends up playing a game and everybody's like, holy shit, like, who is this guy, right? And those guys come around only once in a while, but it's got to be somebody that we've not, I was kind of hoping that Mikko would be that guy, right? He wasn't, right? Like, Bennington, right? Or some of these guys that they just seem to come out of nowhere, and everybody will tell you goalies are voodoo, right? But we know what Talbot is at least, and in my mind he is a great backup goaltender. I just don't see him playing the full-time role, and I could be wrong. What about Mike Smith? Sounds like he might be available next year. I would go fish. I would go crazy. I would go absolutely crazy. I would be the first one to send out the Fire Holland tweet. Yeah. On that note, I am going to call it a night, I think. We're gonna have to. We're getting close to the end of the playoffs, obviously, which they never seem to end. There's a potential for 13 games left for both teams. When you think about that, in my summer hockey league, we play 16 regular season games and then 2. That's almost a whole summer hockey schedule that they're going to pack in back to back to back like that. which I just want to shout out to the boys of the hockey team. We started the summer hockey season out with a win, a nice 6-2 drubbing. I had a 3-point game. In fairness, though, the other team was shit. They were awful. So it wasn't like a stellar performance by me or anything. It was just happened upon the right team. Made me look really good, let me tell you. Yeah. So anyway, yeah, we're almost done. We're getting to the end of the Stanley Cup. We'll start doing some more live shows in between now and then. I've got my own travel schedule that's taking me around the world in the next, I'd say 3 to 4 weeks. So probably when that comes, when I'm done that and the draft is up, we're going to start talking a lot more prospects and stuff. And quickly before we call it a night, is there anybody you'd like to see on the Oilers after the draft? Anybody that you've heard about that you think might fall down to the 8th spot, or would you trade the pick?
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm not interested in that whole, first round to move Lucic scenario. That does nothing for me. I don't. Yeah, the only thing I would think about is if you can trade that pick, combine it with somebody else to try to improve your defense. Try to get a 2-3 defenseman. That can come into the lineup next year and help. That's maybe a thought. Or if you can move that pick to a higher pick, something like that. Those kind of things are intriguing. But yeah, I'm by no means the prospect, guru.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'm not the guy to really ask who we should draft, because in that 8th spot, that's a bit foggy for me. I'm too busy with my sons to be too busy to the OHL and Q and Dub too much.
So the WHL has got a number of top prospects this year, which is good. A couple of those that I have had a chance to watch live. This year, Cousins, Krebs happen to be in the, if you go to the Oil Knights top 31, they, see, you're getting the call. You're getting the hook here right away, too.
Pretty soon, yeah.
The two that, we're going on to Game 6. We have got a Bakersfield goal. So this is first ever Oilers Live breaking news. 13:02 of the second OT period. Monday night is Game 6, and Curry, who had one hell of an end of the season in Bakersfield, scores the game winner in the second OT. So that is awesome news for Bakersfield, and great news for Josh Curry, who we saw a lot of in Edmonton at the end of the year. All right. So anyways, as I was saying, a couple of the guys, if you go to the oilnight.ca, the first article he's got there is his top 31. His view of who the best prospects are. It's not a mock draft, as he says. It's just if you were to order them in terms of top to bottom, these are the guys. 7 and 8 he's got over at Krebs. Cousins is a special player, but I'd actually be I'd be surprised if he goes down that low. Anyway, let's call it a night. You're getting a hook, and I've got a couple things to do. It's midnight here in Mountain Time. Thank you, everybody that tuned in, and a few chats. It's been a while since we've gone live. Hopefully, probably not for a little while, but in the next month. After that, I'll go do some live in between then and now. I've got a number of recorded podcasts that are set to be released from stuff around the league. I've got a just just interesting information about hockey. I'm going to be doing a podcast with a lady that helps professional hockey players prepare for retirement from the time they sign their first contract until the time they retire, and some of the challenges that go along with being a professional player, of which I've never had those challenges. So my career is just taking off now, and it might be a little too late for me. Anyway, any last words, Mike, before we call it a night?
Just hopefully Bakersfield can, advance, knock out Dallas Eakins. That'd be okay with me.
The fitness guru. All right. All right. Everybody, thanks for tuning in. I am going to shut this one down at just after midnight. Thank you.